Hello, everyone. Welcome to She Knows Arsenal. This is your live player ratings for Arsenal not scoring any goals off of 77 touches in the box and 30 shots in the game versus our two West Ham's 2 goals. So go ahead and get into the chat and let me know how you guys are thinking and feeling. I see some chat messages are already there. I do apologize to everybody for not being here immediately following the game. I had a mix up in my schedule, but we are here. And so we're going to go ahead and get it done. Let me just go ahead and put out a little tweet really quick while you guys get into the chat and yell at me, because I know you guys are, but I love y'all. And I know you guys are just taking out your frustrations on me. It's fine. Let me just send this out now. I know it's a little bit later, but listen, we got to talk because today was so typical in the worst way. And I remember telling you guys yesterday or the day before that, listen, I think that should have been like a 3-1. But for me, it ended up being a 2-0 because Arsenal did exactly what I said not to do, which is you have to score in that first little 10-minute, 15-minute flurry when they're not really on top of things. The first 10 to 15 minutes of this game, we were on top of them and should have scored at least a goal. But then they come down with their very first attack and score a calamitous goal. And then from there, it was like Arsenal were in shock. Arsenal were in shock. They could not get back to that steady, confident kind of like, vibe. They couldn't get back to it because they were rattled. They were rattled out of their skin because they had conceded that one goal. And it was bad. Don't get me wrong. Like that goal was awful. But I just feel like when you're at home, you should still feel like you have the confidence to go out there and score right away. And as the time ticked on, especially once we got to halftime, I was like, it's not looking good. Then we had a couple of decent chances in the second half. Then we conceded the second goal. It was done from there. I mean, it was basically a carbon copy of almost like the Bournemouth game without the vibes and the excitement and the crowd. And we'll get onto the crowd in a second as well, because I'll be honest with you, seeing them leave early and the energy was not coming through the screen. I don't know if anybody was there, but what are we doing? I think the vibes have been off in the stadium since the beginning of the season. And I get why. You're traumatized from the last season, not quite sure about the signings that we've made, and the expectations are there, but you can't be leaving early. It was only 2-0. And if anybody was going to help that team get through it, it was going to be the fans, and they weren't there. So they weren't there in their own bodies, and they weren't there in the stadium. And that's all I have to say about that. But another game where we're going to be talking about the amount of chances that we created that were not put away and the margins not going in our favor. I get that the goal that West Ham scored probably has a little bit of controversy wrapped around it because we couldn't actually see if the ball went out. But make no mistake about it, the way that goal came about was lazy defending from Ben White. They put in a very good ball into a dangerous area, because guess what? That's how you score goals. When you put in balls into the area and early good balls into the area, it makes the defense make mistakes, and you make your own luck. Two Arsenal players bump into each other. I don't know what it is about Zinchenko consistently bumping into his own teammates, and then it bounces out to whoever that was who scored, and they put it in the back of the net. Very simple goal from West Ham, just by putting Arsenal in situations that make them uncomfortable, being more desperate to get to the ball than Arsenal. And it just reminded me a lot of the Newcastle goal. If I'm honest, we were waiting for them to say that the ball went out, and we lost concentration and they scored. You have to play to the whistle. We have to be much better in defense. And there are players that are showing consistent lacks of concentration in defense. It cannot just be Gabriel and Saliba every single game. It cannot. Our fullbacks are not doing a good enough job. And so that whole goal, the way that it happened, how many times do we have to say, if the ball is, you don't know it's out or not, you have to continue to play to the whistle. We just lose concentration every single time. And the goal that we concede is it's the second goal that we conceded. I'm sorry, but like that is just so typical Arsenal to concede a soft set piece goal, and not only a soft set piece goal, but for a player that used to play for Arsenal. How many times are we going to watch players that used to play for Arsenal score against us, but our players that played for other teams never score against their old teams. Well, how does that happen? Declan Rice had his worst game in an Arsenal shirt against West Ham. How does that happen? Everybody else that leaves us and goes somewhere else has the game of their lives against us. Game of their lives against us. I'm sure if we played against Lyon, Lacazette would score a hat trick. But no one from Arsenal seems to be able to score against their old team or even just have a good game. It's ridiculous. I don't know what to tell you. But, Declan Rice also gives away a penalty and Raya saves it, which, listen, he was not the problem in my opinion today. The main issue that's been plaguing Arsenal over the last couple of weeks has been our lack of ability to be clinical when it really matters. Any game that's not against the lower half, we can't score a goal if they put it on us. We can't. We can't score a goal. Villa couldn't score a goal. West Ham, we couldn't score a goal. Newcastle, we couldn't score a goal. We barely scored a goal against Liverpool. It's becoming something that's like very much so giving like red flag, red flag, red flag. Because as much as we can say, oh, once they click into gear, we're going to be scary. What if it doesn't click into gear? What if this is what it is? What if Martinelli stays like this for the rest of the season? We know what Jesus is giving. He's everything outside of scoring goals he's going to be great at. What if Saka doesn't carry us? What are we going to do? Right now, we have two players in our team that are not scoring goals. One that historically doesn't score goals and another one that scored a lot of goals last season but doesn't look like scoring at all this season. So what are we meant to do? Arsenal need a midfielder and a defender in January, but we also probably need a couple of attackers. What are we doing? And to have spent 200 million and to still be having conversations around what we need to get in January. And two of the positions that we're talking about are not really injury based. They're more based on if we're not sure if we have the right players or not. Listen. It was a mess today. Not prepared to throw the baby out with the bathwater. Like, I'm not saying season over, but I think the team that wins the league wins that game. And so, yeah, it's West Ham and their plan worked. And on another day, we probably score a couple goals, but it's been too many games in a row now where if the team is not like a shitty team, we don't score. And you can't be blanking at home. I thought it was bad that bad enough that we blanked away from home against Newcastle and Aston Villa. You're blanking at home now. And that's not good. And I get that West Ham are very good on the counter. They got 2 goals in the way that we knew that if they were going to score, that's how they were going to do it. Counter attack, simple direct goal, and off of a set piece. I think those are the same ways that they scored against us in the cup. So we were prepared for that. But what I was not prepared for today was the amount of chances that this team could not convert and the lack of conviction in everything that we did. Everything. Every single player in that front line lacked any sort of conviction. Then you add Trossard to it as well. And it was just like, what the fuck? And I get that Odegaard may have did maybe too much towards the end, but please save it for another day. This is not an Odegaard game. In fact, he was probably our best player and he created most of the chances that we had. This team we had 5 big chances missed. 5. That is a lot of big chances missed. And I guarantee you Odegaard created probably all of those because I don't think Trossard was doing shit. Declan Rice, he wasn't creating anything. So if it wasn't coming from Saka and Odegaard, it wasn't coming. So Odegaard and Saka are meant to score all of our goals, create all of the goals, score everything. What's the left side doing? Was he holding back Martinelli today? No, I don't think so. What is the left side doing over there? They're not connecting. They lack conviction. They shoot when they shouldn't shoot. They pass when they shouldn't pass. They have wide open opportunities and miss. What's going on? This is something that Arteta needs to look at because I'm not convinced that this can be solved with the players that we have. I'm not. I think this team, this attack has to be almost perfect, which they have to create so many chances that they get 1 or 2 in the back of the net in order to score enough goals. But if the margins are fine, we're not winning the game. We're not winning the game. If the margins are fine, we're not winning the game because almost every single game where the margins were fine, only one of them went in our direction, and that was Manchester City. Every other game where the margins were fine went against us. We either drew or we lost. We've already dropped way too many points this season. It's close right now, but when you think about the way that Liverpool are playing, I don't think they're anywhere near as good as what they were a couple of seasons ago, but they're top of the league. And the fact that Manchester City are probably going to hit their next gear. What's the next gear that Arsenal are going to hit? How are we going to? We've dropped too many points. Fulham and West Ham are going to come back to bite us, and Aston Villa. Those are not games that we should have dropped points in, period. Point blank. And we've already dropped, what is that? That's 7 points. And all 3 of those games we could have won and should have won. And all 3 of those games, we could probably look at them and say, how many chances did we miss? Arsenal are so unserious when it comes to doing things in front of the goal. Very unserious. And I figured this was going to happen at some stage where we were going to look at the team and decide that, like, okay, we need to get a bagsman. We need to get a real striker in there. We spoke about this the other day. But it's coming so quickly that we're probably going to miss out on our targets because we didn't do it before it became an issue. We're going to end up doing it once we lost things, which is kind of how this project has gone. As good as this project has been, we tend to miss out like on something because we didn't do something that we probably should have done because we want to keep the course. But I'm telling you right now that I don't think this problem that we have right now can be solved with the players that we have. And if we don't go out into the transfer window, it is what it is. You know what I mean? Because I just don't see players that don't naturally have that killer edge that are shooting blanks right now in December, how they're going to start to score when it gets really, really pressurized. How are they going to do it? The vibes aren't there. The fun from last season wasn't there. That was what was really carrying us. Now that's not even there. Fans are leaving before the game is even over. It's quiet in the Emirates. They're turning on players. They were turning on Zinchenko and Trossard. There's no vibes here. There's no headed in the back of your own net and everybody stands up and sings a Saliba song. Those days are gone. So how are they going to do it when we get into January, February, March? How? Because right now, you're losing to West Ham in your own backyard. Not a good day at the office for Arsenal. Not a good day. At this stage, creating all the chances and not putting a single one in the back of the net, when we've been talking about this since probably Wolves, this is a 5-game issue now. And we're dropping mega points now. So what are we going to do? I don't know. Arsenal don't seem to want to sell Nketiah. They don't seem to want to sell Smith Rowe. They don't want to sell any of these players. They don't want to bring in a striker. They want to do shit. So what are we going to do? Bring in a defender? I mean, we need a defender, but we also need something else. All the players that we're hoping and praying to come back, by the way, Thomas Partey, Tomiyasu, Timber, they're all defensive players. We don't have, we are in a position now where if those players don't figure out a way to score goals, we're cooked. They have to start putting these chances in the back of the net. I just, today cannot be looked at for me in any other way. I get that we conceded 2 goals. I understand that. And we probably should have conceded 3. I know that. But the game changes, goals change games. If we score a goal in those first 10 minutes where we're playing really well, does the goal on transition, does it even happen? If we score any of the chances that we had in the first half, do they come out and score a second one at the beginning of the second half? I don't know. Goals change games, and we're not getting enough goals. And so, yeah, I don't know what to say. I just feel as though that did not make me feel like we were going to win the title. It really made me feel like we're going to fall short. We're watching a team that probably doesn't have enough. And after spending $200 million in the summer, you should feel like after barely missing out on the title that you're close. But this entire season has kind of felt like we're waiting for this team to click into this additional gear, and it's not quite coming. And the main players in our team that are not performing are the attackers. As much as people probably want to look at Saliba and Gabriel and Raya, our top goal scorer is Eddie Nketiah. I said this the other day. That's that's unacceptable for this team. For the only player to have 5 non-penalty goals is Eddie Nketiah, and he scored, what was his last goal? Wasn't that against Sheffield? When's the last time he scored a goal? It was a long time ago. The attackers are not attacking. And I get that Martinelli might be going through something, I don't know, but we need to figure out a way to score more. Because if Saka doesn't carry us, and if Odegaard doesn't score, those other two are not scoring. They're not. They've got to figure it out. It's crazy, man. It's crazy right now. Social Joint says Trossard is poor, is just poor defensively, positionally. Kai figured that out in 2 months, and he was having stinkers. Aman says Nketiah is our top goal scorer in the Premier League this season. It's unacceptable. It's unacceptable. It really is. Off the Radar says thumbnail says not 2-0. Maybe I put the wrong thing up here. Let me check. Oh shit. Yeah, I did. I'm sorry, you guys. I made a mistake on that. You guys know what I mean. We did not score the 2. They did. I was rushing. I'll change it right now. But we know we lost. Like, let's be serious. Right now it's not that deep, is it? Let me just save this and change it. I'm pretty sure the actual title says, yeah, West Ham scored 2. So there you go. Let's see. Nito says Saka's off form, Martinelli's off form, Odegaard and Jesus not hitting, but we're still second and we can learn and build again. One hit won't kill our run. Here's the thing about this, Nito, is I think you're making a lot of sense when you just think about it like that. But what I think about it from, and this is exactly like kind of what my thought process was last season when I said once we lost to Man City at home, we lost the title, is because there's momentum shifts, there's inevitabilities, and there's the fact that Manchester City have been maybe more off this season than they were last season before they overtook us. And we have not been able to create a gap of 3, 4, 5. We're still in the mix with everybody else. Like, we are still like, we could finish first or fourth right now. That's how close everything is. So with all the points that we dropped, we did not create that gap that we needed before Manchester City hits their inevitable bit of form. And I don't know if you guys watched them against Everton, but they were not good, but they still beat them 3-1. And Everton are in form. This is before they get Kevin De Bruyne back and without Haaland. So we all know in the back of our mind that it's not just about, oh my gosh, we're only 1 point off the top. It's, we know that Manchester City are right there and they always kick into gear at the exact same time. So if we had like a 5-point gap last season, we don't have that gap this season. And we don't have the fans aren't there in the stadium like they were last season. The vibes are off, so I get what you're saying. It's not like the end of the world. Like, we're not 100% out of the title race. But I do think we've, with this result, kind of pushed it into Manchester City's hands a little bit. To me, this was a very big missed opportunity because this next run of games kind of have to be cash money, cash money, cash money, cash money, because we really didn't do enough in the tough run that we just got out of. So yeah, Lionite says left side was paralyzed tonight. So disappointing. They were awful. They were awful. The left-hand side, Zinchenko, Trossard, Martinelli were all bad, and it's funny because I'm looking in the chat right now and a lot of people are saying that they missed Kai. And I think this is a little bit of indication for Kai Havertz and people that have been backing him, because some people were really trying to run with this narrative that Kai was holding Martinelli back, just like they were saying Odegaard was holding Saka back. These attackers are not doing their job. They're getting into good positions. And like the old adage, it's the coach's job to get you into the attack. But what you do when you get there is up to you. Period. Kai is not stopping Martinelli from taking a good shot. Kai is not stopping Gabriel Jesus from heading into the back of the net. Kai is not stopping Saka from kicking into the back of the net instead of the post. That's not on him. It's not Kai's fault that Trossard was taking bad shots today. We have to, at some point, we have to stop babying this front line because they're getting enough chances. When we weren't creating chances, everybody blamed Kai and Odegaard. They were getting pelters. It was their fault that nothing was coming off. Now we're creating chances. Now we're in the final third. Now we're breaking down these blocks, and these guys aren't scoring. They're not. They're not doing what they're supposed to be doing. They're making the wrong decision at every single turn. Every turn. Wrong decision. They shoot when they're not supposed to shoot, and they pass when they're not supposed to pass. They take an extra touch when they don't need to, and they're taking the shots that I could take with a weak ass ankle. Lock your ankle and hit that through the back of the ball. Shit. But they're in their head. I think they're in their head. Listen, I know it's hard and it's easier said than done because I'm sitting on my, couch or whatever watching the game. But I'll tell you right now, that tweet that I told you guys about yesterday or the day before, yesterday or the day before, that said Arsenal have spent 50 million on their attack and it looks like it or it shows, keeps going in my head. As much as I love Martinelli and Saka and Jesus, there's not a single player in that team, in that group right there, that is a clinical finisher, a bagsman, a deadly, deadly, deadly attacker. Not one. Saka's tried, but Saka really needs, I think, a better player in there that he can feed. Because a lot of times he feeds in good balls, but like they just miss them. I would love for Odegaard and Saka to have good quality clinical finishers around them. And that's not really to throw Jesus and Martinelli under the bus, but we need at least one in that front line, and we don't have one. Martinelli was that guy for us last season, but he's painfully out of form. Painfully. And we have to stop babying him. Like, I expect him to have bumps, like roller coasters in form because he's young. But what I don't expect is for us to pretend as though these are not things that he's doing and to continuously act like it's all the players around him. Yeah, like maybe he would be doing better if maybe Xhaka was still there, but Martinelli is still making terrible decisions and taking horrendous shots, right? And so for me, it's more about that than anything else. Because when you have 30 shots, you create 5 big chances and you have 77 touches in the box. That just doesn't seem to me like, oh yeah, well, we're not creating enough chances and we're not getting into the right positions. Like, put it in the back of the net. Philip says, Jess, home fans are actually disgraceful. The way that they practically will the Raya stuff up and get nervous constantly is a contributor to us losing points at home. Listen, here's the thing. It's like anybody that goes to games, I understand that it's totally different for you than it is for me. So I'm not going to pretend like, going home and away and all that kind of stuff is not difficult because it's a strain on finances and time and all that kind of stuff. And so I'm saying this with all the love in my heart. When I was there at the beginning of the season and I was at the Nottingham Forest game and the Fulham game, and I was at a couple of preseason games, including the Community Shield and the Monaco game. And I also went to games last season like Brentford and Wolves and Nottingham Forest, and I went to all these games as well. This fan base is this fan base is traumatized from last season, and their nervousness is definitely felt in the stands. There's no aura, there's no environment, there's no atmosphere. All that shit's gone because there's all that trauma and shit from last season. And it was like when watching the Nottingham Forest game, it was like everybody was holding their breath because they were, are we going to be the same as we were last season? Are we going to bottle it? Are we going to do this and that? And I think, I'm not saying it's their fault, but I do think that like you would like your home to be a cauldron, and it's very much giving library like it always did back in the day. Like we had one good season of a really good atmosphere and it's fucking gone. But it still is up to the players to get the job done, you know? Let's see. The Arsenal perspective says, I said it at the beginning of the season, PTSD. Benny says, we haven't won for a long time. Why compare them to Liverpool fans? Social Join says, no, it's a London thing. We are bougie. We are not turning up to a wet day to see Zinni to be constantly goofy. Listen, I think still we get a hard time whenever we go to away grounds, small away grounds, Palace, difficult game for us, Luton, whatever, we can do a little bit better. Like, I get that we're bougie and we don't want to see Zinchenko doing what he does, but like, pull your pants up. So, at least stay to the end. At least stay to the end. Leaving at 2-0 for me was a sign of exactly what the season has been. I think every single fan has been waiting for a moment to say, we're not going to win it, so fuck the season. And I feel like today was the day. So yeah. But I still think you need to back your team, like, or be in the stadium at least making noise, or that's all I'm saying. So yeah, John P says the low block was going to get us sooner or later with our finishing. Boy says soft hands. Arteta won't bench Martinelli, won't take a chance on a youngster, won't take a chance on Smith Rowe. Smith Rowe, I said, should have started this game. I still feel like he should have started this game. I was surprised that Trossard started at left 8. I don't have an issue really with Trossard playing left 8, but I just felt like Emil Smith Rowe, if you're talking him up the way that you've been talking him up, you've been saying that he's gotten better, and his recovery has been a lot better, and he's showing it in training. This was the time to show that you really trust him. And I think there's been 2 situations so far this season that has shown me that he does not trust Emil Smith Rowe or Fabio Vieira. Now, whether you rate those players or not, maybe you guys think, well, both of those players are bad. But listen, if you don't think these players are good enough, then you need to go ahead and sell them, because to not play Fabio Vieira against Burnley and to play Jorginho instead, to play Trossard at left 8 instead of playing Emil Smith Rowe, I think those were perfect opportunities to show that you trusted those younger players, but you don't. And so Emil Smith Rowe comes in, and of course, he's bright and he's light and he's doing the things that I think Trossard, some of the things that he wasn't able to do. And I think just again, he's missed out on an opportunity to show that he really trusts a player. And at this point, I think the writing is on the wall for Emil, but then you need to go ahead and let him go, because like, what are we doing? There's no reason to keep him around just to play around with him, like, hello. So yeah. F says Saka's finishing has improved over the years, but he's always been more of a creator than a bagsman like Salah, who can do both, can improve with time, but gunmen needed badly to help him out. I agree with this. I think when you're looking at the personalities of the players that we have, Saka is more creator than finisher. Odegaard is more creator than finisher, but the 2 of them are being asked to score a lot more goals because we have a striker that doesn't strike, and Martinelli right now is not firing, and he's more of our finisher than creator. And so for me, when I watch games like this and we're constantly going to the right-hand side, and every time the ball hits the left-hand side or gets to Jesus, they just fluff their lines, it's really frustrating. And Jordan made a really interesting point too, about the attack too. And I'm not going to be able to find the tweet again, I don't think. Let me see if I can find it, because I thought it was probably something that I haven't thought about enough. But it said something like, we have too many players in the team whose like added value to the team is away from the position that they're playing, or their added value is not like in like the context of the position that we're playing. So you have like Zinchenko is playing left back, but he's not really a left back. You have Jesus that's a striker that's not really being a striker. And so what we're seeing is on a consistent basis, as good as I think Jesus is, and as good as I think Zinchenko is for us in possession, I do think you're starting to see those little bit of cracks there too, where it's like, it would be nice to just have a good left back, and it probably would just be good to just have a good striker at this point, because the added value that they're giving us is no longer pushing us over the line. What Jesus is doing outside of the box and what Zinchenko is doing in possession at this stage, it's not as big of an added value as it was last season. Maybe that's because other teams have clocked on to us, but I also just think it's because we're not scoring enough goals. And then we're also conceding off of that side a lot more. So when you're not as dominant, you probably want to go back to basics. And, I think that's why Tomiyasu is such a big miss. But even Tomiyasu, like, as good as he is, he's completely in the other direction, where he's so defensive that we still lose things in possession. So it's something to think about as well, because at this stage, we're not getting enough from Jesus and Zinchenko's. What they add for us outside of what their position that they're supposed to be playing is not giving us enough, if that makes sense. And so, yeah. And those are the two players that seem to stick out to me most in these last 5 games. It's Zinchenko's mistakes that pretty much almost cost us, or um not scoring enough goals, and is all that Jesus winning the ball and working hard and doing all that, like, is it really giving us enough to mean that, like, I think, like, just even, like, a decent ass striker scores the goals that we've been fluffing recently. Like, I'm talking, like, I really do think that, like, if Solanke was in there, he would have scored at least 1 goal today. I know that sounds harsh on Jesus, but listen, um, it I there's some things that are becoming a little bit, I feel like, more obvious, um, than they did before. Social Join says Jesus' lock is at 2.0. We need to move on. Philip says the Ashburn Army was created a lot of atmosphere, and Arsenal literally have their ticket allocation. I heard season ticket holders tell them to shut up and sit down for cheering on the team. They're definitely missed, the Ashburton Army. I know that it's maybe too American for people and they don't want that, but a big reason why we had an atmosphere last season was brought on by them, and the fans that are there now are not holding it up. They're too nervous. They're too stuck in this, like, oh my God, I'm traumatized from last season. And sometimes you do need your atmosphere. It's the reason why Klopp was asking for the Anfield to be loud when we played them on Saturday. It's because that shit fucking matters. And so if you don't have those things going in your favor, you need a little bit. The way that we came back against Bournemouth, a lot of that was because the fans stayed behind the players and they help push them over the line. All of that's gone. Like, it really is. It's gone. Like, it really is. Chosen One says, yeah, Jess, I think we have the creators. Saka and Odegaard are absolutely fantastic at creating scoring opportunities, but what we might lack is the absolute killers in front of goal. I don't know. I don't know how else to, you have a striker that's not a real striker, but also he's not, like, the things that he does off the ball aren't really showing up, especially not in the Premier League, in a way that I feel like feels really valuable to us, if that makes sense. I actually think Jesus has been really poor in the Premier League, if I'm honest with you. Um, I think he's been rendered pretty, like, he hasn't really done much in the Premier League that makes it worth it. That sounds really bad to say, but there's been a couple of games in the Premier League where he's come off and I've just been like, what did he do? In the Champions League, he's been all right, but in the Premier League, it hasn't been enough. And then you have the Martinelli problem. And is that some people are still saying it's because he's too far wide. He's not getting any good positions. He's not in goal scoring positions. He needs to be more central. For a lot of the people that are saying this, I remember them because I have a good memory. I remember a lot of the people that are currently saying that Martinelli is too wide now are the same people that feel like he should have been a striker to begin with. So, was he too far wide last season? Was he in not good goal scoring positions last season? What's the difference? Because he's getting in the same positions and taking the same amount of touches in the same positions. So, is it you just want him to play striker and you always have, or has something changed this season, or is he just in bad form? What is it? Because no matter who's around him, he's not playing well. And so, yeah, I don't know. I think it's more him than anything else, but maybe I'm wrong about that. Maybe I can't see something. Maybe somebody that's more of a tactical whiz can show me why it's the case that Martinelli is in the same positions and in touching the ball is the same amount of times, but it means that what he's doing makes sense. Like, it doesn't. And I want to be very careful because I always know that sometimes things can come out later on that maybe somebody's going through something, but I think keeping that in mind, he's just not playing very well. Zach 10 has a question asking, do Jesus and Martinelli need to be used as squad rotation players? I'm struggling to picture them as crucial to a title winning team. They're literally used like Saka and Saliba status. I've been thinking about this a lot, like, lately, and just like what Arsenal have been all about. Like, even before we tried, like, we haven't even tried to buy another striker. We've been very comfortable with the options that we have in Nketiah and Gabriel Jesus. But Arteta has tried to buy like a left winger multiple times. And him wanting to almost spend like 85, 90 million on Mudryk makes me think that there might not be as much confidence in Martinelli as maybe the fans do. And, we also have to remember Martinelli was not an Arteta signing. I think people forget that, but he is not, so all of Arteta's non-Arteta signings usually end up leaving at some point or not being as important to the team. So I just always keep that in the back of my mind. Now, can Martinelli be a part of like a title winning squad? Not in the form that he's in right now. The player that he was last season, absolutely. The player that he is this season, no. And I just think there needs to be another option in that left wing position that's more of a dribbler, scorer, somebody that's going to really put him under siege, somebody that's going to really show us whether or not Martinelli can fight for his position or not. Because unlike Saka, I actually don't think Saka needs that much competition, if I'm honest with you. I think Saka and Martinelli are on two different levels. They're on two different stratospheres. I think you have Saka, Odegaard, and Saliba that are pretty much like unmovable. And then everybody else you can kind of, and Rice, and you can see other variations in other positions. Martinelli for me is not indispensable. Could he potentially be something really special? Yeah, but one season of 15 goals and seven assists does not make you world class. You have to have multiple seasons like that in a row. Right now, he's not going to reach that season. So what Arsenal need to do is go out and get another winger. Now we already need a striker. Okay. We need a winger. We probably need another midfielder, and we probably need a couple of defenders. Can't go into every single window needing 5, 6 players. Something is not right. But I do think that Martinelli is a good player. I just don't think that he's maybe as indispensable as the others, but I don't feel like it's like over. I think some people are ready to just like give up on him. We probably just need another winger that offers us something else when Martinelli's not playing well enough. That's not Trossard, because Trossard is obviously not going to do that for us either. So there you go. I really like Martinelli. I just wonder, I just wonder. Aman says Jesus long-term will be a winger. Jesus, he kind of does, like, when people are saying that he's a little bit like Lacazette, I can understand what people are saying, because I don't think that, I would hope that what they're saying is not that they feel like Lacazette and Jesus are on the same level, because they're not. Jesus is a much better player in general than Lacazette ever was. But what they have in common is that they've convinced themselves that like at Arsenal, they convinced themselves that they're not goal scorers. And so whenever they get in front of goal, they shit the bed. And then they focus very heavily on the other things. So it's very rare that you're going to find somebody like a Harry Kane that can do all the creating things and drop deep and do all that kind of stuff and also bang goals. But Jesus and Lacazette, I do think that being strikers, number 9s to begin with, and then being told your role is going to be different. If you were just like a really good number 9, nobody would ask you to do other things. But because you're not that good at scoring goals, you're being asked to do other things and facilitate for other players. And I feel like that could be soul crushing for a number 9. I don't think it's something that they can necessarily come back from. I think people forget, like, Firmino was a midfielder. So having him go from being like a number 10 or whatever to a false 9 is different than a number 9 going to a false 9. Totally different. So yeah, I think there's a little bit of something in Jesus where he already overthought things, but he might be overthinking it even more now. He's being asked to be a leader in a team where he was never really a leader before, and he's not really doing it, beyond winning the ball back and winning fouls and things like that. I think today he didn't really offer enough. And I think it's painfully obvious that Arsenal need to go out there and buy 2 attackers, a winger and a striker. But again, we need so many other things too. So Lionite says fans running off Jesus doing a big mistake. The thing is I don't think Jesus needs to leave the team or not be in it, or I'm not going that far. But I do think that if you're watching us playing, you don't think we need to bring in a clinical number 9. I think you're watching with your eyes closed. This team doesn't have enough goals in their wingers right now to facilitate a false 9. Like, if you're going to do that, you would have to have like a Mane and Salah effect. And we had that kind of last season, but we're not really getting it this season. And you're asking suboptimal players to come up with big goals. And we can't be asking the likes of, our center backs and our midfielders to come up with big goals when we really should be asking that of our wingers, you know? So you can share the goals around. Like, I'm not saying that that's like wrong, but we're actively asking like players that don't usually score goals to come up with big goals on a regular basis, and we're not getting them. And I can't get I can't be upset that like, oh, maybe Saliba or Gabrielle or whatever are not really chipping in as much, or our fullbacks don't get goals, because that's not really their job. I'm more looking at the players that had the 77 touches in the box. Like, come on. Um, but I also kind of would be a little bit disappointed if we ended up with Tony, because as desperate as I feel like we are, I still feel like he might end up being somebody that doesn't hit the heights the way people think that he's going to. He's a good player, but the longer that this goes on, the more I'm thinking, damn, I wish there was somebody else that we could probably get. But yeah, Chosen One says, do you have any ideas of competition for Gabby Jesus realistic? Of course, it has to be somebody that is like a natural winger. I think because Martinelli is not a natural winger, and he was kind of like a number 9 that turned into like a forward. He doesn't have like that natural winger ability to like get past his man in the way that a lot of other wingers do. And so he does it better than probably other number 9s could have done it. But um, I think you need somebody with 1v1, ability that knows how to get into the box and get past their man consistently, make quick decisions. Probably somebody that's pacey, probably somebody that's, not small, somebody that can offer a little bit of something. Like, personally, like, I like maybe like a Nico Williams, or, somebody like that. I know people have pipe dreams of Leao. I don't think we'd be able to get Leao with also needing like a striker, and Leao's not my favorite, but somebody like a Nico Williams, or like somebody like more of like a natural winger, that scores goals and gets assists and just kind of like gets into the box and knows what the fuck they're doing. Um, and right now we don't have, like, Martinelli is a winger for us and he's doing a good job, but who else is a natural winger in our team? We don't really have any. Like, even Reese comes off a little bit more like an inside kind of player, interior. Trossard is more of an interior player. Emil can play out there more of an interior player. We need somebody that can actually just be a winger, you know? So yeah, it's it's a tough one. It really is. Jordan Davis says, "Get me Jarell Hato in the winter window, a bag." I mean, we need that. Like, we need a a a defender for sure, but we need other shit too. Like, I just, maybe it's because of this, the moment that we're in, and we've had 5 or 6 games in a row talking about missed chances and not feeling like our attackers are giving enough, but I'm not sure that they click into gear at some point. Like, I'm not sure that they do. So going without the attacker feels like that's it. We're asking like Timber and Tommy and Partey to come back. None of them score goals. None of them are really attackers. Like, we really need to think about this very, very, like, it's so important. Social Join says, no striker is available. Go get a defender. Yeah, but you can get an attacker. Like, just because you can't get a striker doesn't mean you can't get another attacker. You need to get somebody that offers us a little bit of something different. Because Trossard, Martinelli, Jesus, Saka, they're not going to get it done. Nelson, not going to get it done. They're not going to get it done. They're already, sorry, they're already struggling, and it's not even like in the run-in. It's not even in the run-in. Dodd says, we regressed or progressed playing this controlled style from last season? I think at the beginning of the season, first 10 games, people, I think, thought that we had regressed, but I see the beginning of the season, these first like 20 games that we played or whatever, in 2 different parts. I think there was the part pre-Odegaard and Jesus coming back into the team, and the time after. And because the last 10 games we've been creating as much chances as everybody else, we've been winning on XG, we've created open play chances, all that kind of stuff. I don't necessarily feel like our controlled style is actually keeping us from scoring goals. I think our attackers are actively keeping us from scoring goals. I think that you can be controlled and not always go like pedal to the metal and still score wide open goals. You know, I think we tried to add that extra bit of control that has helped us, but the problem that we have now is when the margins are fine, we just don't have the killers. And like a lot of people have been talking about it, and nobody's really talking about our controlled style being a problem. What they're saying is that we don't have, and I hate to say this because I know that we think they're special, but we don't have any special players that can come up with special moments in games where the margins are fine. That's what we don't have. That doesn't have anything to do with the controlled style, unless you guys want to go and give away some of the controlled style so we can maybe create more chances. But I don't necessarily feel like that's the way to win the league. I don't think any team over the last couple of years has won the league being wide open. When Liverpool won the league, they were a shut down defense. And yeah, they had some chaos to them, but they were not letting they didn't have gaps like that, and they also had a world-class goalkeeper, and we don't have that. So unless you're going to go buy Allison and then put Gabriel and Saliba out there and say, you guys deal with it, then we need to be more control. And so we need to look at the top end of the pitch and say, who is going to give us that edge when the margins are fine? And against Newcastle and Aston Villa and in this game, they haven't come up with the goods, despite us creating so many chances and being controlled and limiting the other team to chances. What we've been, even when we played against Brighton and freaking Wolves, we talked about this. We should have scored 5-6 goals in both of those games, and we scored what, 2 each? It's not enough. We need better attackers, or they need to, either the attackers that we get need to pull their pants up and play like they got some balls, or we need better attackers. And I'm leaning towards the latter, that I think we need better attackers. I think we need, listen, when I put it up, I think, and this will still be true because we did not score a goal today. When I put this up the other day, I'm serious, y'all. Look at this. Look at this. Look at this shit. Despite, because look, these tallies may have changed, but our tally has not changed. Look at everybody else's top goal scorer. They're in double digits. They're in double digits now. They're in double digits. Our best, our main goal scorer, Nketiah, or top goal scorer, has 5 non-penalty goals. Saka has 5 goals, but 3 of those are only non-penalty. Nketiah is our top goal scorer. They're getting chances. Look at them. Son, Salah, Haaland, all bagsmen. All bagsmen. Every single one of them. You can't rely upon Saka and Odegaard to be your main goal scorers. You can't, because they're creators. They're fantastic players, but they're not going to be able to do it. You need to go out and get a striker or another attacker or something, because these numbers don't look good. I think now, maybe Tottenham have 39 goals now. Yeah, all these are pretty much up to date. Everybody else is almost at 40? We're still hanging back at 36. And we only scored 1 against Liverpool. We didn't score any against Aston Villa. Be serious. That's all I'm saying is when we're watching it, what's the feeling that you get? I want you guys to go in the chat and let me know what you're thinking. When you are watching our games, what do you think? Are you getting the feeling that we're not creating enough chances, that our defense is poor, or that we don't have clinical enough finishers? What is the feeling that you get in your gut? What does your gut say? I think sometimes your gut is the most, before you look at stats, before you listen to a bunch of podcasts, before somebody else tells you what their view is of it. What does your gut tell you? My gut is telling me these guys don't have enough goals in them. We have a bunch of creators and not enough finishers. The one finisher that we had is having a terrible season at the worst possible time in Martinelli. So that's where I'm at. That's where I'm at. Because we have a good defense, but our defense is not gonna save us every single time. They're not gonna be able to keep clean sheets every single game. That the idea that they should have to in order for us to get points is ridiculous. And yeah, they were not great today. They were not great today. I think our fullbacks were diabolical today. I really do. Ben White, shape up. Get it together. Wake up. Ever since you peroxided your hair, you ain't been the same. I know that you're dealing with a knock, but get it together. That is not good enough. Zinchenko, not good enough. I get that. But they can't save us every single game. Most games, they're keeping teams from even getting a point of XG. Most games, less than a point. But it doesn't help that we're not getting any XG in some games and the tight games. And when those one or two chances do come, we don't put it in the back of the net. We don't put it in the back of the net. Aman says Arteta said that he would rather spread his goals around the players that are creating chances for a striker. The thing is Arteta can say that all he wants to, but we know that we're looking at strikers. So it's in his best interest while we don't have a striker to go into the media and say that this is the way that we want to play. If he goes into the media and says, yeah, I don't really want to spread the goals around. I want to get a bagsman in the team. How does that help us if he knows we're not going to get a striker in January? It doesn't help. Arteta's never going to say anything in the media right now beyond we need to share the goals amongst the team. And we should still share the goals, you guys. I'm not saying that we should only have one goal scorer, but sharing the goals doesn't mean that we have to require our center backs to score a shit ton of goals off of set pieces. You know what I mean? Like right now, the amounts of goals that goals that Kai Havertz and Odegaard are getting right now are pretty analogous with everybody else that are like top 8s in the league. Nobody else is really out here scoring 10, 11 goals. So we need to temper our expectations. Those guys, those three attackers, they need to score more. They need to score more. And if they don't have moments of magic, I don't know. The best attackers can make something out of nothing. You know, they've got something and they're not getting anything. Do you know what I mean? So I can always blame blame the defense and look at Zinni, of course, but Zinchenko's only there because Tomiyasu's brittle and Zinchenko or Timber got the ACL. So as much as I want to beat that horse of Zinchenko, really, the attacks are letting us down. They are. They really are. Let's see. Social Join says our fullbacks need upgrading. Ben White and Zinchenko lapses are crazy. Always cost us. Certain man needs to be subbed. I mean, the thing is when you're looking at the fact that we have two better fullbacks unavailable, it's not like we didn't try to upgrade. Like we have Tomiyasu and we have Timber. Neither one of them are available. So every team has to live with having players behind the starters or the better players that they have to deal with. And we just have to suck it up. Like whenever we don't have our best players available, I think we forget that we have players that we bought. They're not there, So we have to deal just like everybody else. I'm watching Spurs. I'm watching Man United. I'm watching all of these teams play with guys that they don't particularly love the most. Manchester United going out in games with Johnny Evans. You know what I mean? Like the only team that probably doesn't have to deal with this shit at all is Man City. But even Liverpool are playing kids at the back. So we just have to deal with it. Everybody has liabilities in their team. Everybody has players that don't necessarily float their boat, like Zinchenko or maybe Ben White. But we have players in our team that we consider some of the best in their position, best in the league, top 5 in the league, and they're not performing like that. So of course I can see Zinchenko as the liability or whatever, but I think the continual focus on it is more based on the fact that people just don't like Zinchenko because he cried, because of what he posted on social media, because he's not a real defender, whatever. But I can't even look at Zinchenko anymore because we need to be able to absorb him because we have injuries at the back, but we don't have injuries at the front. We have all of our best attackers available to us and they're not scoring. So how can I continuously look at Zinchenko? We have our best attack available to us up there and people still talking about Zinchenko. That's so weird to me, Ambition says, what do you think about Johan Bakayoko? I love him. I think he's great. I would definitely bring him in. Anybody that Liverpool are linked to attack wise, I know that people don't like Nunez, whatever. I think he comes good eventually anyway. Go get, because they know attackers. They've been linked to Nico Williams as well as Johan Bakayoko. Go get one of those. They know what they're doing. Prince says, some of you believe that we should hold off on signing Tony instead of wait for Victor Osimhen, who Arsenal may not ultimately acquire given our track records when it comes to future promises. Yeah, there's definitely that too. People are we have to bring in Tony now because this is a really good opportunity to win the league and this and that. I do think that sometimes you have to think about the current state of your team and where you are in the league and what you want to accomplish this season, and make concessions. But if I feel like I know Arsenal the way that I know them, they're going to wait into the summer to get a big signing done. And if we do end up getting an attacker, it'll be like more of like a winger or something like that, because they're not going to rush that striker signing. They're not going to. I don't think that they have it in them. It's just not something that we tend to do. We just don't do it. Aman says Zinchenko cost us the first goal by getting in Gabriel's way when he should clear the ball. What was he thinking? Again, Zinchenko definitely was culpable for that, but also Ben White was terrible in the build up to that. And everybody switched off when the ball was probably still on the line or whatever. I don't know what it is about us standing around and the ball is out instead of, switched on like everybody else. But again, as bad as Zinchenko can be, we have our best attack up front. So what am I, you know? Let's see. Boy says I'm not convinced that we are in a position to win the league, and I think I don't think anybody at any point this season has felt super confident in that. If I'm honest, I feel like there's always been an underlying question mark of whether or not we've done enough, whether or not we've gotten better, blah blah blah, and that's why you have the kind of like the vibe in the stadium. I feel like that's like we blew our one chance and now we're not any better than we were last season, so blah blah blah. But I do think when you tend to go into every single window needing 5 or 6 players, you have to look at some of the choices that you've made, and look at that. We needed probably one midfielder. We bought, and I think a lot of people felt like we needed an attacker, we needed a defender, and we went out and we got one midfielder, we got one defender, and we got a half attacker, half midfielder in Kai Havertz. And that didn't really solve any of our problems. I don't think Kai Havertz at this point has solved any of our problems. And we spent almost 70 million on him. What that could have went to was a really good attacker that makes special moments out of nothing. And so even though maybe we'd be a little stretched in midfield right now, and we'd have to use maybe Trossard or Emil Smith-Rowe in midfield or whatever, would be a little stretch, use Jorginho. I still think in a game where we had 77 touches and 30 shots, that player scores a goal. Maybe Kai Havertz scores a goal today. I don't know. But I think based on how the season has went, maybe you have to look at the way that we allocated the funds. And I think going multiple windows without buying attackers is kind of like, come on, at some point you need to say, okay, we're going to get an attacker. I don't know why they decided not to get any in the summer, but as good as I think Kai has been, he's always going to go down as the signing that didn't really make sense, because we either needed like the perfect midfielder or we needed like an attacker, and we kind of did neither. And so we're going to go into the January window needing an attacker that we probably could have gotten. We probably could have gotten in the summer. Now we probably need that money in order to get one, and then we're still going to go into the summer window still needing to do that as well. So yeah, it's just one of those for me. We need so many positions, but you have to prioritize properly, and I'm not sure that we've done that. Unknown says not just we needed minimum 2 midfielders, arguably even if we kept Xhaka, Elneny, Lakanga, shouldn't even be in the roster, and J20 fifth choice. No, I mean, I think if you have to choose 3 and you look at the attack that we have now, I think we based a lot of the emphasis on those players doing the exact same thing as they did last season. And so you still would have been short somewhere. Every single team is probably short somewhere where they're dealing with something and having to like kind of deal with, not having multiple options, I get that. But like, again, we had Emil Smith-Rowe who has a contract with us that's not really playing. You still could have used him if you're going to use Kai. So yeah, I get that we needed a minimum of 2 midfielders, but we still needed an attacker. So wouldn't it have been better to get one midfielder, one attacker, and one defender? Like I kind of get what you guys are saying with that. It's kind of going back in time or whatever. And probably at some point we all felt like we needed 2 midfielders, but I don't think you can go a window without getting an attacker when you look at the attacking options that we have. Reiss Nelson and Nketiah are playing bigger roles, or especially Nketiah playing a much bigger role than he probably should. Trossard was somebody that was kind of like more of a stopgap, but doesn't really offer any pace. We have one player that offers pace, and there's a lot of emphasis on Martinelli being able to recreate those numbers, Odegaard being able to recreate those numbers, and we didn't really do anything to make it so that they didn't have to or make it easier on them. And so here we are. Nito says we need a star clutch player from the bench, either a big striker or shooter at a central attacking mid. Odegaard and Jesus can only do so much. LD says people talking about City all the time, but they don't talk about Liverpool. They are not playing good, but they are still in first. What if they buy some quality players in January? I mean, they'll buy at least one. They'll buy at least one quality player in January. And, I'm thinking about like, how do we match that? We're already kind of in a position where we're waiting on the attack to click. It's probably not going to. I think, I don't think there's going to be a click, if that makes sense. I don't think we're in that phase anymore. I think we're in the phase of maybe just seeing who these, this is probably what it's going to be. It could probably get better, and we're not going to always play against a team like West Ham who defends so well. That's why you can still beat the Brightons and the Wolves and all that kind of stuff, missing many chances and a really out of form Martinelli up there and Jesus not scoring. But, I do think about what Liverpool will do or whatever. I still think it's Manchester City's a league to win. I think they're probably still the best team and have the most to come back. Kevin De Bruyne, adding him to the team, I mean, that's bigger than any signing that I think Liverpool can do, if I'm honest with you. So, let's see. P Trim says, I must say ESR always tends to have shots at goal. Yeah. He always looks bright and like a goal threat. But he wasn't trusted today. So a player that's not really a midfielder first, played over a player that's a midfielder first. So there's that. Boy said, nah, Odegaard's game today deserved a lot more than what he got. Get that man a striker. Yeah, Odegaard would really play a lot better. And I think the thing is I think if you take away the burden of Odegaard having to score 10, 15 goals a season and you allow him to do what he does best, which is some of the passes that he puts into his teammates, it's criminal what they do with them. They either pass when they shouldn't pass or take bad shots or whatever. And the chefing that he was doing today did not deserve. This is another game gone by where he played really well and created loads of chances and came out with 0 assists. So just imagine if he had a real striker in front of him. Imagine if Saka had a striker. We're wasting their creative talents and asking them to do things that are a little bit out of their wheelhouse because Martinelli and Jesus aren't scoring, so we need to get somebody. But I don't think our Arsenal will do it, because they really need other things, Jagun says, weirdly enough, I feel like Havertz played, we win all those headed chances and cross it into the box. Like the Emile Smith-Rowe thing, like the Emile Smith-Rowe one, where I think Odegaard hit it into the box into the back post to ESR. I think Havertz hits that mostly because he's just taller and better in the air. I like that run from Emile Smith-Rowe, as it wasn't the same little dinky runs that everybody else was doing. It was dynamic, and it made Odegaard pass him the ball, and he just barely missed it. So I can't be mad at him for that. But yeah, we did miss Havertz, and he does score goals, and he does get on the end of crosses, especially for deep blocks. He works really well in those. So yeah, I mean, I think we did miss him quite a bit. And I think we still missed a trick with not starting Emile Smith-Rowe. I don't think there was any sort of like midfield battle that we couldn't have won with Emile Smith-Rowe with Trossard in there. Emile would have been able to break lines a little bit more with his passing. He's more, I don't know, he is more of a creative number 10, and Trossard is creative and can do those things, but I think Emile would have been the better choice. Prince says, in the absence of Havertz, instead of starting Trossard in the middle today, Arteta ought to have started ESR there and substituted Martinelli or Trossard in the second half. That's how I kind of feel too. Like, I just don't really understand why we continue to keep Emile Smith-Rowe and act as though we're not interested in selling him. If anytime there's an opportunity for him to play, he doesn't get one. And, if you're talking him up the way you're talking him up, this was a perfect game. Like, I'm sorry. Like, I get that West Ham have good counterattacking, but for the most part, like, they didn't really trouble us that much. And I don't think Trossard's defensive prowess was keeping them from going down the gut. I don't really understand why ESR doesn't play. Like, if you like him as much as you say you like him. Aman says Raya didn't even go long today, which tells me he changed his system to suit him. And to be fair, it could have helped us, but you never know. I don't know. Raya wasn't really tested. He saved the penalty. The first goal was a calamity, and the second one was a set piece that wasn't really defended that well by Declan, if we're honest. I think he was poor for it, maybe even Gabriel a little bit too. And this was by far Rice's worst game in an Arsenal shirt. And it just amazes me how many Arsenal players play terribly against their ex teams, but every ex Arsenal player turns up to the Emirates and sticks a knife in our back. Like, I don't know if it was just like the moment and knowing that he was playing against his ex team or whatever, but he was shite today. And it was just like, I just was like, I just want somebody to turn up against their ex team fucking once, man. Jesus hasn't scored any goals against Manchester City. Zinchenko ain't never scoring a goal against Manchester City. Rice didn't do shit against West Ham. Who is going to score against their ex team, man? Like, or have like the game of their lives, man. It's so annoying. So annoying. Yeah, we're just talking, you guys. I know this is player ratings, but I can't be asked. Fours, everybody gets fucking 4 except for like Saka and Odegaard. Let's be real. And the defenders. Unknown C says they played like they all had a Merry Christmas. Maybe. But they played like the first 10 minutes felt like to me like they were desperate to score, but they were almost like overcooking it. And then when they got that gut punch, they didn't have the conviction in what they were doing to feel like they can score. And I think that like that happens when you're looking at players around you and you're like, these motherfuckers aren't in form. You know, it's like Odegaard and Saka are doing all this shit, and then they're looking to the left-hand side and they're like, you guys aren't going to score. And I think that lack of conviction comes from seeing players that are not in form for multiple games in a row. And last season, it was like every single player was on it. Xhaka, Odegaard, Martinelli, Jesus, and Saka were all on it for like almost the entire season. When Martinelli went through his blip last season, it was like it was less games than this. You know, Jesus was out, but we put in Nketiah, but everybody was so good that we could carry Nketiah. You know, Xhaka was playing well. Odegaard was playing well. Now a couple of those players aren't able to get into form, and we're looking sus. You know, we're looking super sus up there. It's come on. Jordan Davis says, and you know what's peak jest? Our ex players always score against us. Exactly. And that's what I'm always saying. Ex players, no matter who they are, they always score against Arsenal, but our players never score against their teams. Never. Their ex teams. Why? Why does that happen? Why do you guys shit the bed? I hate that. I hate that. Aaron Knowles says 77 touches in the opposing box and failing to score. Exactly. It's awful. Emiliano, you're spamming this, so I'm going to go ahead and put it up here. You don't have to put it up anymore. I promise. Why are the Emirates feeling so quiet? No one's hyped up about Arsenal. I think it's just more the trauma of last season. I felt it when I was there at the stadium that everybody was kind of waiting on us to chuck it into the back. And then I do think that a lot of Arsenal fans were like suppressed how upset they were about last season. I think a lot of people convinced themselves that we just lost to a better side and look at they were the treble winners and we never expected to be in this position. But when you go 20 years without winning a title or being anywhere near it, and then you have an opportunity like that, it's as dramatic as this sounds, it's fucking traumatizing. It really is, because in the way the collapse, if we had been behind Man City the whole time and just couldn't catch them, that would have been so different than being top that entire time and really starting to think you're going to win it and to collapse the way that we did. Because we didn't, it wasn't about, losing at the Etihad or anything like that. It was really not beating West Ham, not beating Southampton in the way that we didn't win those, and the calamity attached with those. Saka missing a penalty, Ramsdale chucking it into his own net, all those things, Zinchenko getting, ripped by Trent, all those things, I don't think people properly coped with that. I think people decided that it was okay. And when the season started, those old like memories came up and we haven't been able to get over it, because I think everybody is I think people convinced themselves, but that was a massive, massive, massive capitulation last season. It cannot be ignored. I get that they're a young team. I get that, shit happens and like sometimes, but like you should be getting it over the line in that circumstance. And I just don't feel like there's a lot of conviction or confidence that we're in a better position to do that. And so people are like, they're in the stadium, like feeling those emotions. Do you know what I mean? Because when Saka passed that ball back against Fulham and it got intercepted by whatever Fulham player that was, and they kicked it in the back of the net, the feeling in the stadium was, oh my God, it's happening again. And I just think that everybody's kind of waiting for it to happen again. Does that make sense? Because we haven't been overly convincing this season. So that's the feeling that I'm getting. And it's coming through in the screen too. I just don't think the Emirates has ever sounded super loud or super confident. And when we go down, it goes quiet. It's not like last season when we go down and everybody's like, let's go, guys. The fun's gone. It's gone. The fun is gone. So and let's be honest, who's had fun this season? We keep it real here. Who's had fun this season? Last season when we were having fun, we were flying. That was fun. This season, who's having fun? Let's be serious. We're not having fun. There's a lot of stress, and we can't relax enough to enjoy the ride. It's not fun. Jordan says the nervousness in the crowd defo affects the players. They got to kind of do their job, I hate to say it, like it's probably rich from where I'm sitting, but I do think that like in a game like this, even if you're not going to be like screaming at the top of your lungs, stay, because when we were still trying to fight back, the seats were empty. You could see it. And for us to be in December, almost January, and for people to be leaving the stands at 2-0, you can see how uncommitted they are to Arsenal being these potential title contenders. And I've never seen that in any other team, really. We're very flaky, when it comes to support. Social Join says, or just maybe London folks don't care about that. Like I'm telling you, this is just entertainment. Also, leftover Christmas food is better than guys conceding 2 goals at home, win the crowd over. I don't know. Maybe it's a London thing. I don't know if I believe it's a London thing. But maybe it's just a London thing and they couldn't be asked to stay for 5 more minutes because the leftovers were running out of the refrigerator. I don't know. Aman says Man City can go above us if they win their game in hand. I swear we are our worst enemies. The only thing stopping us from winning the league is ourselves. I mean, you beat West Ham and you beat Aston Villa, and how many points are you clear? Those are 2 games that we definitely should have been winning based on how many chances we created and how better were than the other team. But in both games, those teams were better in both boxes than we were. And so, yeah, I mean, that's the thing, is we haven't created any sort of gap. And so even though, like I said, people are saying, well, we're only 1 point off the top and this and that, you have to think about the amount of opportunities that we've had to create a gap, and we haven't taken those opportunities. Last season we did, and we still bottled it. So if we don't have the gap, what makes you think that we're going to be able to get beyond? I just don't know. Unknown says, preach Jess, let's not hide the shame of last season. It was bad. It was bad. I dealt with it last season and said how I really felt about it. I got pelters for it. How dare you expect us to win the league when we were never meant to be there before? We didn't bottle it, blah, blah, blah. It's not a failure, blah, blah, blah. But I dealt with it because I told the truth. I told the truth. I thought it was terrible. Adam says 2 similar games, but West Ham were more solid. We couldn't penetrate. I don't know, Adam. They may have been, I think, yeah, West Ham were better defensively than Aston Villa, but again, we missed 5 big chances, so there was still enough in there. And I think, again, if you have even like a decent striker out there, like let's just throw somebody out there. Solanke, he scores at least one of those chances. Let's be totally freaking for real. Our players don't crash the box. They don't make dynamic runs. They don't have that instinct. They're very much so like devoid of like that when it goes across the box. Like remember against Liverpool, Jesus put one across the box and so did Saka. Nobody even crashed the box. Nobody even tried to get there. We are not instinctual. If it's not a part of like the play, we don't score and we try to walk it in. The first 10 minutes, we were trying to walk it in. We didn't need to walk it in. Fucking shoot. If you shoot, you make your own luck. Sometimes it goes out for a corner. Sometimes it comes back to you. Sometimes they kick it in their own net. Think about the way West Ham scored today. They did a nice ball in behind, like first or second time, great ball, and it scrambled our defense so much that we made a mistake and they capitalized. We don't do that. We try to walk it in. Stop trying to walk it in. Like, it was so annoying the first 10 minutes. I couldn't even enjoy the football that we were playing because I know it was good. I couldn't even enjoy it because all I could think about is when you don't score these chances, they're going to come down one time. Because what did I say? I said, when they're scrambling and they're not as solid at the beginning, the first 10 to 15 minutes when they're nervous, you have to punch them in the gut. You have to punch them in the gut right then, because that means that they have to come out. And we didn't do it. We were too busy flicking and being fucking cute and trying to walk it in. Stop trying to walk in. I don't care. It's annoying. Lionite says West Ham are actually better without Rice. I don't care. I love Rice. I don't care how bad he played today, you guys. I'll be so honest. I don't care if West Ham are better without him. I think we're better with him. I think we need better attackers. He's been one of our best players this season, and one bad game does not stop that. I don't give a shit if West Ham are better this season than they were last season. I could not give a flip. They're not my team. So the two things are not Arsenal, like, made a mistake by buying Declan Rice because they got better. I don't care. West Ham are not even in our stratosphere right now. Aman says, yep, all of our attackers just waited for cutbacks instead of attacking the box. No conviction or hunger to score goals. They don't like the feeling of scoring this season. They just look like they were so stressed out about it. Like, relax. Unknown C says something else that's pissing me off. What the fuck is going on with the set pieces? Most of our free kicks and corners are, I mean, we've scored most of our goals off of set pieces and corners. So I don't want to go too hard on us because 1 minute, we were thanking Nicholas Jover for the goal that we scored against Liverpool. But sometimes the delivery is not good. I think sometimes we don't know what we were trying to execute because some of our set pieces are quite convoluted and have a lot of moving parts. But I think what was clear today is that because we knew West Ham were big and strong and good in set pieces, that we tried to do shorter corners and stuff, and that didn't quite work out the way that we wanted it to because the execution wasn't good. But I fall short of thinking that we're not good on set pieces or our delivery isn't good, because if it wasn't, we wouldn't have so many set piece goals. You know what I mean? So today it was not good. Keep Trossard off of corners and shit, because he is somebody that's not doing well enough on them. But listen, I don't know. I don't really want to go that far that like the set pieces aren't good enough. You know what I mean? Adam says definitely starting to see frustration in Odegaard, though. He should be frustrated. He left that game against Wolves with no assists. I think was it Wolves, or it might have been Brighton, but it was a game where he created 3 clear-cut chances and nobody scored. And he's been getting absolutely annihilated this season for playing through an injury and then not scoring 15 goals. I'm sorry, but the only other player that scored 15 non-penalty goals is Kevin De Bruyne, and he's only done it once. So what does that tell you? It's not likely that your number 10/number 8 is going to consistently score 10 goals and get 10 assists. It's unlikely. So instead of requiring Saka and Odegaard to do all this and be the most creative players and be also goal scorers, relieve the pressure off of them and get a fucking striker or another attacker, because I don't think Saka and Odegaard were bad today. I don't. I know Saka hit the post. I get that. But they can only do so much. If there's only 2 attackers out there, there's only so much you can do. And they need somebody else to step up. And the left-hand side has just not done anything this season. It really hasn't. And I don't know. That's just where I am with it. That's just where I am with it. Odegaard should be frustrated because everybody's blaming him for not scoring goals. But we have 3 attackers that aren't even above Eddie Nketiah for goal scoring. Odegaard has more goals than some of our attackers. Be serious, Jordan Davis says, just 5-0 is the score to West Ham against Arsenal since Rice. 5-1. It's 5-1. Since Rice moved. He was on the pitch both games. He's a double agent. I don't know. If we want to start an agenda against Rice, have fun with that. But one bad game and now people want to throw him under the bus. Let's be serious. Like, he didn't even start the game. Like, the game was already what, at 3-0 when he came on against West Ham in the cup. So let's be all the way freaking for real. I think if Martinelli can have multiple bad games in a row and people still back him, I think Rice can have one bad game, and people can still be behind him as well. Zach 10 Football says, do you think Arteta will be ruthless by selling and replacing some fours? Until now, I've always been thinking about adding, but not sure now. Napoli really like Jesus. I miss Alexis Sanchez. Are you suggesting we go out and get Alexis Sanchez? Because I hope not. But he needs to be more ruthless. I think we've been a little bit afraid to rock the boat in some positions. Like, there was a season ago where I think a lot of us felt like we should have upgraded in midfield and we did not. I think it was the season that we got Zinchenko and Jesus. We bought a defender and we bought an attacker, but we didn't buy a midfielder. And we bought Fabio Vieira, but what we were really looking for was somebody that could displace Xhaka. Now, after that, Xhaka had like his best ever season. So I think that kind of glazed over the fact that like 6 seasons prior to that, he was not that great. And so the midfield rebuild took longer and maybe required 2 players instead of 1, and so now we're behind on the attacking rebuild. And so that's going to cost us. Like, I just think we should do the obvious things sometimes. Like, this summer, we probably should have brought in an attacker. We probably, as much as I do think that, like, I understand what they're trying to do with Raya. Maybe we didn't need to bring in a goalkeeper. Maybe we could have done something else. Like, you know what I mean? Like, our priorities a little bit like off. I think we need to start buying attackers. Like, our attackers are not good enough. Not to carry us the way that I think that Arteta wants them to carry us. So I don't know if he'll be ruthless or not, but up until this point, he's been less ruthless with them than he has been with others. How many center backs have we bought? And I do think we need to buy defenders. Like, don't get me wrong, but we could have sacrificed like one defensive or one midfield signing, I think, to have brought in like a really good attacker. Because again, it looks like we haven't spent a lot of money in the attack. And like, when we pop it up again, because I didn't really do the math on here when I first made this, but I was just thinking, when you look at those attackers that everybody else has, even just like look at Liverpool, like Salah. I know he was there like 10 years ago, but he cost like 20 something million. John cost like 35 million. Gakpo cost like 40 million. Nunez cost like 60, 70 million. Luis Diaz cost like 45 million. They've spent fucking money on their attack. We know City have. Holland costs money. Grealish costs money. Foden was academy. Doku costs money. Alvarez costs money. Son costs money. Kulusevski costs money. Richarlison is shit, but he costs money. Brendan Johnson's costs money. The only team that, we have 2 academy players and a guy that costs 6 million, and Jesus and Trossard. We have not spent money on the attack, and it shows. Just even one signing would make a difference. Like, just one. Like, I'm not saying that we need to get rid of everybody, but I think just one, could make a huge difference in games like this. Issa said, we didn't need a goalkeeper. An attacker should have been the priority, but they chose to renew Nelson, only not to use him anyways. Why are we keeping Nelson and Smith Rowe around? Why are we keeping them around? They're not trusted. Move them on, especially in January when you're desperate and you need somebody. The only way that the FFP conditions change is if you sell people. So Ramsdale, Nketiah, Nelson, Emil Smith Rowe, I'm looking at y'all. Some of y'all need to go, because you're not even playing, so what's the point? So yeah, Social Joint says Holland's purchase is a little suspect. They bought him for 55 million on paper, but that's not the real number. But I'm saying they still spent money, because we all know that Holland really cost like almost like 100 million, like with all the wages and all the fees and all that kind of stuff. But my overall point is that every other team has at least tried to invest into their attack. They bought at least 3 or 4 players into their attack. Arsenal, as much as we love to say it, like, Saka is a part of our academy. That's great. He's fantastic. But Nketiah is not fantastic. He's not. Like, he's not fantastic. So we need to look at that and say, can we not do better here? And like, why is it always wait? You know, Immortal says we bought Havertz to be fair, but he's not an attacker. He's not a forward. He's a midfielder. We bought him for midfield. That's why he consistently plays in midfield and not up front. We chose to buy somebody that it's fine. Like I like Havertz. Like I'm not saying that he's shit or anything like that, but you could have waited probably one more like if we were going to play this way, let me just play devil's advocate. If we were going to play this way with two more advanced eights, I get that Havertz is so good off the ball. I get it. He's so good off the ball. But if you're going to play this way, you already have Jorginho, you have Thomas Partey, whatever, he's injured. You could have put more emphasis on, I don't know, Fabio Vieira, who you spent 35 million on, or Emil Smith-Rowe, who you renew and always talk up. One of those two players could have played, and you could have bought a striker. I'm just saying, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I'm just saying. We had creative midfielders available to us. If we were going to play with another creative midfielder that crashes the box and is not really a build-up player, Fabio Vieira crashed the box, kind of is a creative player, doesn't really do build-up. Emil Smith-Rowe crashed the box, creates chances, doesn't really do build-up. We already had players that could do that. Maybe Havertz was better off the ball, but could we have not pushed that to next summer? If we wanted that, like, that's all I'm saying is that, like, the Havertz signing will always look weird to me because that's 70 million that could have been spent somewhere else, and it could have been spent in attack, even though I still feel like Havertz is playing well, if that makes sense. Lionel says the whole left side was AWOL. It was like they were not there. And there was like one time where Martinelli, they passed him the ball in the box and he just kind of like froze. And I was like, he's going to be terrible today. Something is not right. Maybe we'll find out later what that is. Maybe we'll find out later what that is, what's going on with him. And I'm open to the idea that maybe something is going on behind the scenes, but with the information that I have, he's really playing poorly. And that's unfortunate because he's our main like goal scoring striker, like attacker. And he's not like, have Mane and Salah ever gone through seasons like this? Like, did they ever go through seasons like this? Or I think Son maybe went through one, but that was like 1 in 10 years. You know what I mean? Most of the time, they scored hella goals. I'm going to fucking go look. Even we're talking about wide players, not even strikers. I'm looking. I need to look, because I'm trying to understand. Nah, fam. Salah in his first season for Liverpool scored 32 goals. Then he had 22. Then he had 19. Then he had 22. Then he had 23. Then he had 19. And then now he has 12. So even if like at this stage, if he doubles it, it'll probably be his second best season at Liverpool. Based on what he's done so far in the Premier League. Let me look at Son. So again, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 7 seasons. 7 seasons at Liverpool. Martinelli's been at Arsenal this is his 5th season, by the way. It's his 5th season. I get that he's younger, but let's say this is his 3rd real season. That's what we'll say about Martinelli. Let's not count the first 2. This is his his 5th season. So let's say this is his 2nd real season. Let's say that. Son, who I hate, let's go. Damn, he's been there forever. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 seasons. His first season, he scored 4. His second season, he scored 14, 12, 12, 11, 17, 23, 10, and 11. So unless Martinelli gets his ass going, he's not going to meet those numbers. Do you know what I mean? Unless he has like a real goal scoring second half of the season, because he only has 2 so far in the Premier League. So like I'm saying, like this is very weird for him because this is somebody that we're requiring to be our Son or our Salah or something like that. And he's not coming up with the goods. Those numbers have made me very sad. Very, very sad. Unknown C, thank you so much for your super chat. Says, for that cappuccino, you guys know I love my coffee. I love my hot chocolate. I love my mochas. I will be using this. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And I appreciate all of you guys. I know this is kind of like just a rambly thing, but I just couldn't be. What's this? I just couldn't be asked to do like all player ratings because I know that's boring when we do things like this. Oh, I know what this is from. I just found a random key. Um, there's a random ass key. Boy says Martinelli will probably score pretty regularly from February onwards. Got a feeling. I hope so. We need it. We need it badly. We need it. I mean, even like I'm not even saying like he needs to have the same season as last season, but like he probably needs to reach like 10 goals, you know? The Arsenal perspective says Martinelli will have to score once every 2 or 3 games to catch up. Chosen One says, Jess, in terms of finishing, we do lack the magic moment player. In terms of creation, I think we have that. It's about the player that always gets on the end of those crosses from Odi and Saka. I agree. Carrie Parker says Martinelli doesn't look up. He runs around like a headless chicken. The thing is he did a lot of that last season where he looked up. Like last season, I thought that he had kind of moved on from having his head down, like he was looking up, like he was getting a lot of assists. And this season, he's just not in the same level of form. Like he has to go back to that. Ivy says it's a tough loss to take. I still can't process it. Yeah, it's not. You know what? Because it should have been a win. Like when you know that you're playing up against a team that you're much better than, and you're at home, and you have the amount of chances and domination that you had, it's really difficult to take. Especially when, I mean, we're in an injury situation, but we're not so bad off where this makes sense. It made more sense to me for us to be bad against them away from home in the cup. I did question why we were so bad because I think some Arsenal fans are they're too accepting of our form in cups. They're just like, well, we rotated. So I'm like, I can kind of understand this being off, but not this off. But that being said, we're not in that bad of an injury situation where this should have been the result. But it's hard, it's tough. It is. It's a tough one to take. It really is. Boy says, I still think Patino has something to offer this team right now. By the way, should really recall him if at all possible. If he's not playing Emil Smith Rowe, Fabio Vieira, and he's choosing to play Trossard over them in this 8 position, and Havertz is the starter, Patino is never going to play a freaking game. Let's be serious. Social Join says the amount of passes Xhaka did for Martinelli to run onto was a lot underappreciated. Martinelli left to take on 2 players with limited skill set. Maybe that's a little bit of it. Maybe it's the double team. Maybe it's when he's receiving the pass, maybe he's not in enough space. I don't know. Somebody will need to show it to me. Somebody will need to show it to me for me to really believe that it's because Xhaka is not there passing in the ball and that the left-hand side is letting him down. Somebody would have to show me that, like with clips, because I don't see it that way. As somebody that rewatches games numerous times and really tries to understand it and give the benefit of the doubt, as much as I can understand that Xhaka was passing that ball into Martinelli frequently, I do think that he is still getting the ball the same amount of times in similar positions, and he's consistently making the wrong decision. So if he needs to be by himself, now here's a question. If he needs to be in a position where he has so much space, like he is in the Champions League, to be useful to us, then we definitely need another player, because no team is going to decide to open up against us. Like the lower half teams are always going to low block us. They just are. So if he can't figure out how to be useful against teams with multiple players on him, then maybe we do need to find somebody else. That's all I'm saying. Let's see. Sam says the guys are getting double teamed. Yes, but that cannot be an excuse for what I'm seeing. That's normal football. We were ruthless up front last season. We have been sussed out. We came up against low blocks last season too, and we were able to clear those out too. Like we didn't necessarily play against really open sides in the second half of the season. I remember as soon as the World Cup was over, low blocks, like, you know what I mean? So yeah. Vignesh says 77 touches in the opposition box, most since 2008. 5 clear chances missed. Zinni is a defensive liability and is causing the left side issues. Will we go for a striker in mid-Jan, Zubimendi or Tony? Let's see. Will we go for the striker? I don't know. Arsenal has already kind of come out multiple times that we're not going to do that in January because it'll be easier to do it in the summer. But that doesn't stop you from bringing in a form of an attacker like we were trying to do with Mudryk. But now we have FFP problems because we spent loads of money on players that did not push us over the line. And that's something that they have to look at. That you spent 200 million and you need possibly more now in January to get us over the line when we spent 200 million. So are we getting enough, from the players that we bought, from the players that are there? Did we overlook something? Arm says Salah can't handle more than 3 players. But I mean, Salah still, like, no matter what's going on with Liverpool, like, granted, they don't get low blocked as much as we do. I don't think. They they don't. But even when he's not playing well, he gets the XG, and that's where him and Saka are more similar than Martinelli. If he's not playing well, he does not get the XG. So even if Salah's not playing well and he did not play well against us, but he still got a goal. So, that's the difference, I think, mostly between Salah and some of our players is he can be totally bad and still get something out of it. Aman says Xhaka kept the balance on the left-hand side offensively and defensively, but we changed the profile of the left center mid to a box crasher and Havertz. Yeah, I understand that. But what does that have to do with Martinelli getting into positions in and around the box and not being able to beat his man, not taking good shots, not making good crosses, hanging on to the ball too long? Why does that mean that he misses the chance against Liverpool? Why does that mean when he's 1v1 against Konate, he doesn't make a decision? Like, I'm trying to understand what Xhaka not being there has to do with the chances that I've seen Martinelli miss this season. I can see where it imbalances things. I can see that especially earlier on in the season, but I'm not really buying it the way that I never really bought that Odegaard was holding Saka back. I think we need to hold, if we think these players are as good as we think they are, they kind of need to come up with the goods, even when things are not perfect. If you need perfect settings to be able to score more than 2 goals in the Premier League right now, you're not the guy. You know, Let's see. Aman, yeah, of course, Martinelli needs to look in the mirror and improve. Like, to me, these are two different things. Like, to me, these are two different things. When people are saying, like, oh, well, the balance is off and Xhaka was a passer and blah, 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 I hear this. Like, I hear this and I see it. But this here, like, the other thing, that's what people are not, I don't think, analyzing at all, is the fact that Martinelli is getting into those positions and not doing well enough with it. And so, you know, I don't know. But, like, even when people were saying, well, Xhaka would be passing that ball to Martinelli, there are plenty of times where when we're really dominating games, which is most games, where even if you just take away Zinchenko's shit in the back, like when he's shitty, he takes like 70 touches a game, and a lot of those are progressive passes. Most of them are progressive passes, and a lot of them do go to Martinelli. So it's not like nobody's passing him the ball. Now, maybe it's a little bit of like, well, when Zinchenko passes the ball to Granit, then Granit gets players onto him, and then Martinelli is in more space. I can see that. And that's one thing that I want to see. And maybe I'll go back and look because I'm an investigative journalist. That's how I like to be. But that's the only thing that I can see, is that without Havertz being that additional player, there's not anybody to drag the defense to them, which makes the space in behind for Martinelli. But I have seen Havertz do that sometimes too. So yeah, I still think Martinelli just needs to kind of like do a lot better, mostly. Adam says Xhaka and Partey were good in transitions, but also against low blocks, simple and effective passes, quicker transitions, support of the wingers, link up with Odegaard seems more balanced. Um, seems more balanced, and like Aman is saying, both things can be true. That you're missing Xhaka and maybe some of Partey's passing, but ultimately we should still be winning that game. And so, maybe we made a little bit of a trade-off to be more defensively solid, but that's not necessarily stopping us from creating the chances that we should be converting. Do you know what I mean? So I think a lot of what people are more keying in on is with Partey and Xhaka. I think a lot of it was more aesthetically pleasing. I think that's a lot of it too, is it was a lot more fluid and quicker touches and all that kind of stuff. In the way that we are now, we're a little bit more slower in possession. Rice takes more touches and tries to control tempo, and so does Zinchenko. So when they're on the ball a little bit more, it takes them a little bit longer, but we're still creating enough chances to score more goals. Like, do you know what I mean? So for me, like, especially when I watched us play against Brighton and Wolves, and we were popping that shit around. We were popping that shit around. And today we were popping that shit around. First 10 minutes, we were popping it around, So I just feel like it's when Xhaka and Partey, it was the vibes and it was the way it was looking, and teams hadn't clocked on to us yet and things like that. I would love to see if anything changes, if and when Thomas Partey comes back. But I'm kind of just thinking that our players are not clinical enough. And what we did last season was more clinical. It was more aesthetically pleasing than anything else. Um, that's kind of what it is. Lionite says without Partey, distribution looks slow. Adam says, bro, Arsenal need a striker. That players are afraid of getting 1v1s. Nobody is scared of Jesus and 1v1 scenarios, and the guy's allergic to scoring. And that's a big part of it for me too, is like, I just don't think we have any players up front that people are scared of. Like every time we play our top 6 rivals, the things I'm always thinking about is, oh shit, we got to play against Holland. Oh shit, we got to play against, like before it was like Son and Kane. Oh shit, we got to play against Salah and Mane. I don't think anybody's going, oh shit, we got to play against Martinelli and Saka and Jesus. I don't think. I think they know that they have to stop Saka and Odegaard, but I don't think they're really afraid of anybody else. And I think for me, that's kind of where we are right now, is nobody really scares the opposition because they know they're not going to chop them up 1v1. They don't have to be afraid of that. They don't have to go against any like raw, scary speed. We don't have like a striker that no matter what scores a goal. So as much as people are trying to convince me it's no Xhaka, no Partey, it's our attackers. They're not doing enough. Like that, period. And I think I read a quote from whatever that coach's name, Capello, I think it was. I read it on one of my shows before where he said something, and now it's starting to rear its ugly head. Obviously, Neville's comments are also starting to rear their ugly heads as well about not sure that Eddie and Jesus have enough. Nobody said that, it was Xhaka and Partey were missing. Nobody has said that. Nobody that's analyzing our games is looking and saying, what about Xhaka and Partey anymore? Everybody is looking at that attack. They're saying that they don't know if they're connecting enough. They don't know if Jesus and Nketiah can get enough goals. And Capello said that Arsenal don't have that one-star player that, is going to make moments of magic. And every really good Arsenal team has always had, despite it being a really good team, always had one player that comes up with moments of magic. Every team has that. Even as good as City was as like a team that shared everything, they always had a moment of magic player. We don't have one, so everybody that's analyzing from the outside as well is not talking about losing Partey and Xhaka. They're fucking talking about the front 3 and Eddie and Trossard and Reece. And to me, it's so true. Like it's so clear. To me, it's so clear. Kev says facts, our attack is dead. Real talk. The Arsenal perspective says who is that striker we need to get, who other teams would fear? It's Osimhen. I don't even think people will be that afraid of Tony, if I'm honest with you. I think it's Osimhen. You can also look at like players that may eventually become that. Like I'm becoming more and more fond of Sesko as time goes on. I think if you don't get Osimhen, you want to get somebody like Sesko because they have to have speed. They have to be able to run in behind. They have to have a physical. They have to have something that's like they're physically better than other players. Like they can run them down. They can run them over. They can body players. They don't get shoved off the ball. And ball striking. Because none of our players can lock their fucking ankle. So, I think it's Osimhen, real talk, but you can find other players that we don't even have anybody that has the physical qualities to scare anybody, even if they're not that good. Think about that. We don't have anybody that's bigger than everybody, faster than anybody. We don't have anything, physically better than anybody else in the attack. All of our players are like ball to feet players. Martinelli has speed, but he's not really like as rapid as I think people say that he is. Like he is, but like you can shut that down. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, we need like an Osimhen. I don't think Tony's scaring people for real, but I do think that he gets on the end of some of these chances. Rai Kavnu says Osimhen is doing nothing in the Prem. Stop Jess. He had one decent season. okay, like if you guys think that Osimhen comes to this league and does nothing, just wait till he goes to Chelsea. And you guys are whining in the comments. Chosen One says, Jess, that's a very interesting point in terms of the archetype of player. Gabby is more like Salah than Saka. He is like, I think Saka has the more of the consistency, but Martinelli is the Salah in our system. He is the score first, creator second, and he's not scoring. And we need that. So yeah. Jordan says Sesko is a menace. Again, like I'm just looking at people that I don't really want another slow ass striker either. Like nobody, they have to pace him behind, strength, athleticism, ball striking, and they're a traditional number 9, not somebody that's known for their link up fucking play. Like we have somebody that's known for their link up play. We need somebody that all they want to do is score goals. That's it. That's it. We don't need anybody that's thinking about other things. So for me, that's Sesko, Osimhen, these guys. Like the Jimenez and Ferguson and Tony, they're all slow. They don't have pace in behind. Sesko does. So that would be my tier list as of now. Let's see. Emilio says Nkunku is better than Saka. I would hope so. He's about 4 years older. Rice says Cavnu says Nkunku. Nkunku is a good player though. Vingnesh says Osimhen is injury prone though, might be risky purchase, especially considering that Arsenal are one of the most fouled teams. Yeah, that could be it. Maybe not get him because of that. I think Sesko is a sneaky option. Because he probably is not going to cost 100 million, but he has all the raw attributes to be a really top quality striker. I don't think he's there yet, but he's not missing anything. You know, he doesn't fail at anything that I'm looking at. I don't really want a back to goal striker that's like this big lump. Like you want somebody that can also run in behind and give you pace. That's what really scares defenders is somebody that, yeah, they can hold up the ball, but you got to push that line back because that guy's running in behind. You want to be able to be more direct. We don't even play off of the striker anymore as much as I feel like we should. Like I haven't seen enough of like Havertz playing it into Jesus and Jesus just flicking it into, this into space for Havertz. I want to see more of that shit. Like I want to see more players flicking it into the space for other players, but you need to have speed to do that, and we don't have it. P Trim says, Jess, you describe Wahi. Bring Wahi. I'm sure that he would have scored a goal today. Let's see. Kevy Kev says, who's better, Kudus or Saka? Let's be serious. Let's be fucking serious. So every time that we lose a game, all of a sudden all of our players become shit and everybody else's players are better. Saka is on a level that Kudus hasn't even gotten to. He's a good player that's in a good moment, but let's see if he can do it multiple seasons in a row. Let's see if, he's playing in a team that really suits his style, like he's playing counterattack. But let's be serious. I don't know. And I don't know why Saka is being pinned or looked at. It really wasn't Saka to me today or Odegaard. Like we're really talking about two other players here. But listen, I get it. When we lose, everybody else is good. Everybody that we have is really bad. I get that that's how we do. And then we wonder why nobody respects our players because we shit on them the most. Issa says, even if the player isn't super physical and is like Jota off the bench, I'd take him. That's what Trossard was supposed to be for us, but he's not really living up to that, which I'm sad about because I think he's a real quality player, but he's kind of showing that he's going through a really bad patch of form, and I think Jota's been through a bad patch of form, but the player that comes off the bench kind of needs to be like a sure thing. And right now he's not a sure thing. So yeah, Baby Batter says that's Haaland. Every striker is not Haaland, but players have those attributes, and you need to bring in those attributes, let's see. I rate Kudus. I'm just, the idea that Saka is somehow not better than him because Kudus was on the winning side today is very typical Arsenal behavior. It's very typical Arsenal behavior, So yeah, Chosen One says, Jess, we'd have to wait till the summer for Osimhen, right? If that's the case, we would also maybe take a shot at getting Mbappe. I mean, asking wouldn't be a big deal. It depends on where we finish. I think, you have to be in the title race and things like that. I think obviously Mbappe is much less of an option for us than Osimhen would. But some Arsenal fans don't even want to talk to Osimhen because they're so convinced that he wouldn't come to us. So I don't know how we expect to become a big team if we're not willing to have conversations with big players, even if they reject you. So yeah, Lemon Via says there was a time last season where people were saying Rashford was better than Saka. People need to calm down. Anybody that does well is better than our players, and our fans are the main ones that do it, which is funny. Boy says Mbappe is gonna have to sign for 400K per week or something. I can't see him taking that's not it. Blaze says Kudus is not a bad player, but I don't like comparing him to like other players. Listen, Arsenal fans, we eat our own. I'm frustrated with the win or the loss. I'm frustrated with it because obviously this is like a run of games that should have been like slam dunks for us. But just like I backed Odegaard when people were saying that he was like the worst player on the planet, and I'm gonna back Saka as well because I don't necessarily feel like it was on him. I just feel like we have a very specific problem that could be solved by it's a very clear path by a striker or more clinical attackers that only care about scoring goals, that don't get, scared by the lights, that don't go through runs of form. Like, you know what I mean? Like, bring in players whose only goal in life is to score goals and get them in there, and allow Saka and Odegaard to serve those players. I think it's just that clear because even if you think that Xhaka and Partey were better midfield than Rice and Havertz, even if you think that Zinchenko is ruining our lives, I don't think you can look beyond the attack today. I think that's a nice distraction tactic, but we created enough. And in the last 5 games, we've done enough. Like, we've created more than enough, despite it not being as aesthetically pleasing and it's not being Partey and Xhaka and Zinchenko is ruining our lives. We've created more than enough to score more than the opposition. And we didn't do it against Villa. We didn't do it against Liverpool. You could say that was probably a draw anyway. It's fine. And we didn't do it against West Ham. And so we've dropped points, So, that's kind of where I am, where I sit with everything. So yeah, P Trim says we had no penetration in the final third and seems like we lost how to score. I think things aren't working out. When you create 5 big chances though, like it's different when you don't create any chances. Like when we were creating no XG, we created almost 3 goals worth of XG. So we're not penetrating, we're not finishing, we're not being clinical, and we make bad decisions in the final third. Those are 2 different things. Chosen One says, but I think Osimhen would also strike that fear in opposition. Imagine him in the box with those. Exactly. He would strike fear. What we have right now is not a fearful. They're afraid of us as a team. And they know that if they don't shut down Saka and Odegaard, they're in trouble. But, they're not really afraid of the individuals the way that they should be at this stage, So, yeah. But listen, I love you guys so much. We've been going for about 2 hours, and I need to go get something to eat because I haven't eaten all day. And we will obviously pick this up tomorrow, another live show. Don't kill each other. Don't go into the abyss. Don't go into the dark, ugly, scary depression. I know it could be that way. Every time we lose, it goes into that. But listen, it's not the end of the world, but we got problems. We got problems. We have problems. I'm not going to say we don't, but yeah. But make sure you guys like this video and subscribe to the channel on your way out. Patrons, you will get a podcast tomorrow. If you guys are a patron, you guys will get that. And yeah, I have enjoyed talking to you guys despite the loss. You guys know I love talking to you guys, so it is what it is. But yeah, you guys are the best. And I know it wasn't player ratings, but we did our own thing. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. I'll talk to you guys tomorrow. Bye, y'all.